Living in the city can be beautiful at times. There's so much activity and so many options for things to do. I lived in Brisbane on and off for the last 25 years, and I do love Brisbane. It's a city that's just like a big country town. Everyone wants to move to Queensland these days, away from the larger cities after the pandemic. There is a pretty big housing shortage now, and Brisbane has a very warm climate and lots of alfresco dining, which I love. So many mod cons now mean that I can be at work while I'm driving my car. We have never-ending access to electricity supply, clean running water that never runs out, and devices for everything to make tasks quicker, more comfortable, more convenient. But at what cost? We have tried for a long time to be more self-sufficient and environmentally aware, even in our little city house. Recycling as much as possible, not wasting things, not replacing things unless they're truly broken, and not buying from unethical companies. Not only do we both have full-time jobs, but we also have second jobs, and we even had 3 jobs each for a while. This enabled us to save up for our off-grid property. So my second job is running my own handmade artisan soapery, and I was doing markets every weekend on top of my full-time job, but now I just have stockists and an online shop. It's a lot less time consuming, but even with not doing the markets anymore, it's still a big job. We raise our free-range chickens for their eggs, and we grew our own little food forest in our backyard and our front yard. We both really like growing and harvesting our own food and using fresh ingredients in our cooking. We both also love being out in nature. We've kept chickens for about 10 years now. And the great thing about having chickens is that you can make sure they're well cared for, and you know that they haven't been given antibiotics and hormones and things like that. So the eggs that you're eating, are very healthy. We'd also like to get other animals and livestock, like some milking goats and things like that. So we just don't have the room here in the city. We also keep Australian native bees. They are great pollinators for our garden, and Paul builds all the native hives. The lavender in our garden attracts all the European honeybees. What's not to love about lavender? It's low maintenance and drought tolerant once it's established. You can use it in cosmetics, and it's medicinal, and you can eat it as well. I always dreamed of having rows and rows of lavender, and in the city it's just not possible. In our back garden we have passion fruit, pumpkin vines, lily-pilly trees, and our composting system. It probably does look to our neighbours that we've just lost a game of Jumanji. Do you ever feel like you're just existing, not really living, and that a big part of you feels like that you belong somewhere else? Or are you caught up in the 9-to-5 grind and spend most of your waking hours working for someone else and not having much time left over to spend with the people that you love the most? You work really hard to make a good income to be comfortable, but then you don't have any time left over at the end of the day after you've taken care of all your responsibilities to enjoy what you have. Don't you just wish you could unplug yourself from the matrix sometimes? A lot of us don't even know where our food comes from. We can just order Uber Eats from the click of our phone. And aren't you concerned about the amounts of electricity and single-use plastics that you discard daily and are just destroying our environment for our children and their children? In our front garden here in our city house, we have lavender, dragon fruit, loquat or Japanese plum, bananas, and some native trees. And we also have some lemongrass, lemons, and lavender. We are both very lucky to work full-time from home. Just the travel time to work could be between 5 and 10 hours each week. And in our side garden, we have lots of herbs, mint, African basil, rosemary, and parsley. Just walking past the rosemary bush, when you brush past it, the beautiful aroma just comes out. We also have avocado trees and ginger. It was just normal for my parents and their parents to have nothing. Getting new shoes for school was a luxury. They didn't have a TV and they used an icebox or a cold closet instead of a fridge. They grew their own food and they made do with what they had. They didn't have phones for emergencies or new clothes. They wore what their older sibling had worn. They fixed things instead of buying everything new all the time, and they worked from home, on the farm, and they worked hard. They deserved all these mod cons, but do we? Our parents' families had dairy farms, and we were both brought up in the country, so we both dreamed of getting some land out in the country for 10 years before we could actually pay for it. We had a few things on our wish list. Paul wanted a creek, we wanted some usable flat land to grow our food forest and to raise some animals, and we wanted some trees and some hills. When we found our off-grid property, we couldn't believe that it ticked all of our boxes, and then it had some bonuses on top of that: an old well, 4 dams, fences, and a couple of chimneys to remind us of days gone by. We've already made so many memories here. Our teenage sons have had their first drive in a 4-wheel drive out here. And out here, we're not connected to town water or electricity, so we generate our own power through a combination of solar panels, a wind turbine, and a generator as a last resort. More time and less things. That's my ultimate aim, to connect with nature again, to go back to my roots, to escape the better than culture and the pressure to always be available. Nothing beats the sound of nature or the crackling of an open fire, the sizzling sounds of your camp oven, or the feeling that you're leaving a smaller environmental footprint behind.
Hello.
And what do you like about being out at our off-grid property?
The serenity.
What else?
Is there anything else?
When you live off-grid, you have to work harder on a daily basis just to get everyday tasks done, but it's so very rewarding. Living off-grid, you have to slow down and live in the moment. We are leaving the city for a simple, sustainable, quiet and peaceful life. And out here, we can also see all the stars at night.